1054. Parshat Devarim. Anyone who was in shul on Shabbos heard that we said Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. Make you be strong and be strong and be strengthened. That was the ending of the fourth book of the Torah. And now today we're beginning the beginning of the fifth book of the Torah, preparing for the final. When do we end this one? On Simchas Torah.
Yeah.
That will be the grand celebration of learning of the Torah. So, in a way, this Sefer, this book is different than the other books. The other books, it says, it was said by God, told Moshe, and Moshe wrote them down. This book, which is called Devarim, or in English Deuteronomy, says that Moshe mipi atzmi amaram. Moshe said them on his own, said it on its own. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean literally that Moshe just made it up. It's obviously divinely inspired, but there is some difference between this fifth book and the other fourth book, which we'll discuss, I think, later on when we go more in depth. Another point is that this whole book is a speech, a 37-day or 36-day speech. Moshe started on the first day of the month of Shabbat, which is usually January time of year, and he finished on the day he died, which was on the seventh day of Adar, seventh day of the month of Adar, a week before Purim. And for those 37 days, Moshe gathered the people every morning and started the rabbi's speech. You know, if you have the rabbi as a 10-minute speech, we get nervous. But here Moshe went for 37 days, 36 days, and recounted, in a way, the whole Torah. Another name for this book is Mishneh Torah, which means repetition of the Torah. Everything was, so to speak, already discussed. All the mitzvahs, almost all the mitzvahs have been transmitted over the other four books. Obviously, the history, and then leaving the story of the forefathers, leaving Egypt, the giving of the Torah, the travails through the desert, all that has been discussed already. But now Moshe sort of gives a recap. There's a few mitzvahs that as we'll come across throughout the book, a few mitzvahs that weren't told before and told again now. Moshe gives a revision and a lesson over everything the Jews have learned. You have to also remember that it's a different crowd. This is the generation that's going into the land of Israel. They're the ones who are post the 40 years in the desert, and therefore not necessarily all of them remember or around or were old enough to know everything that was said in the land, was said the first time. So it's like a one last, before Moshe passes away at the end of the book, and before they enter the land of Israel, which is the next book, Joshua, Sefer Yeshua, Moshe is giving that one last go through the whole Torah. And the Parsha kicks off on page 1055 that Moshe starts off with the rebuking the Jewish people. And you could read it yourself, the different details of the rebuke, but it's very interesting that Moshe waited till before he died to rebuke them. Because if we rebuked them earlier, they would say, oh, you're only rebuking us to get an excuse of not taking us in the land of Israel or not fulfilling it. But now we're standing across from the Jordan River. We're footsteps away from the land. You could see across. But now's the time Moshe could rebuke them and say, for all the negative things that you've done throughout the desert. Now they're seeing and believing that they're about to enter the land of Israel, and they'll take it. Also, he learned it from someone else who rebuked his children before he passed away. Jacob, our forefather, before he passed away, he gave a blessing to all of his sons, and the ones who deserved rebuke, such as Reuven, Shimon, Levi, he gave it to them right before he passed away. And one last point is that it says that who rebuked the Jewish people? Who was someone who's capable of giving rebuke to the Jewish people? It says Yochitan Moshe Shoyavan. Moshe, who loves them, Moses, who loves them, he's the one who should rebuke them. Specifically, someone who loves the people can rebuke them. If someone who doesn't necessarily love the people, just does his job, then who can know for certain that within his rebuke isn't mixed in a bit of some personal feelings? Like we had Rabbi Pinchas, right? Like, he was the zealot going around kill people. You have to make sure that his motive is 100% pure. Moshe, we know, loves the Jewish people. We know it's demonstrated that throughout the time in the desert, he stood up for them whenever God wanted to destroy them, whatever it was. And Moshe always stood up for them. So specifically, Moshe could come now and rebuke them, and the point be taken. If you look at verse 2, it says, Moshe says it's normally an 11-day journey from Mount Chorev, which is Mount Sinai, to get to Israel. It's if you look at the Sinai Desert, it's not that big. 11 days. I mean, Arik Sharon did it in how fast in 1974 in the 1973 in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. But okay, so the Jewish people will take a little bit longer, but it doesn't take them 40 years. And the original plan was in 11 days they were going to get from leave Mount Sinai after getting the Torah and learning all the laws. 11 days they'll enter the land of Israel. And that's when the whole story with the spies crept up. If we remember, we learned a few weeks ago in Parshat Shalach that they wanted to send scouts, and then they came back with a bad report, and we got stuck there for another 38 and a half years. If you look at verse 3, it's where it says the actual date. That's it's one of the few dates in the Torah. Most of the Torah doesn't tell us dates. It tells us at best years. We have a handful of actual dates. Here it says the first day of the 11th month. So that's quite a Rosh Chodesh Shvat. That's quite a consequential day. If it actually lists us that day. Then it goes through that. Why did he in verse 4? He says, why did he wait? As I said, why did he wait until now? Because we've already vanquished a few of the nations, as we learned a few weeks ago. So we're ready again. He's telling us the receipts in his hand. It's actually happening step by step. We knocked out these two kingdoms. We're about to go into the land. There's what to talk about. There's who the people are receptive to such a message. And then the Pasha continues with Moshe starts listing all the miracles that had been done during the journey. And if you see if you see verse 9, it is an interesting story which we didn't learn because we didn't have a Pasha class then. But there was the story of Jethro of Yisro, that he came with a comment. He saw that the Jewish people were lining up on Moshe's doorstep from the morning till the evening, waiting to be judged. And Jethro, who was Moshe's father-in-law, told him that's not a good idea. This is not going to work. You have to make a system. You can't have everyone come to the supreme justice. You have to make a system of leaders, tens, 50s, hundreds, thousands, and what the leaders of the thousands don't know, they'll come ask Moshe. Right? It doesn't work that everyone should be asking Moshe all the time. The overload of the justice system won't work this way. And that's what he did. He appointed those judges. If you look at verse 13 on page 1059, he appointed the judges. And he found wise and notable men, heads of the tribes, and he made them leaders of the nation. If you think about it, it also fits that right now, before Moshe is passing away, he's reminding them that there is a system of how to seek counsel from. It's an interesting idea. The Rebbe in 1988, after his wife passed away, he had a very it was startling to the people at the time, but a very serious talk where he said that after 120. The system will be in threefold. Any questions of medical matters, so now a lot of people would write to the Rebbe asking for a blessing or advice in medical matters. The Rebbe said anything in medical matters should go to a Refi Yedid, which means a doctor who's a friend. And you should always get a second opinion. And if the two opinions are conflicted, you get a third opinion, and that's how you decide two against one. That's anything to do with medicine. And the Rebbe says, my blessing will come through the doctors. God's counsel comes through those doctors. Any matter of
So where did the Rebbe get his information when he gave advice of medical?
Some things he had information because he had studied, and he kept abreast of all developments, what was going on.
Yeah.
One of his aides' jobs was to find any updates in journals and in many different fields, not necessarily medicine, many different fields to keep it up. And the Rebbe's not going to go sitting reading through newspapers and journals, but if you clip the pertinent things which might interest him, then we'll give him
to the Rebbe organised for a medicine to be sent from America to South Africa when my grandfather took ill.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it didn't work, but it's working now. So it took like another generation
for that medicine to work.
It's very complicated. That some of the immunotherapies, it's that medicine. That's
very interesting. I'd love to hear that story at a different time. Yeah. It's a very interesting story. So matters of business, service, or any financial matters, services to speak it over to understanding friends, meaning people who understand the field and they're your friends. That they'll have that. And any matter to do with Judaism or Jewish law should go to obviously your personal rabbi, your mentor. And if it's more of a communal or public matter, it should be a basin of 3 rabbis who will come to that to come to the final decision. So that's similar in a way to what Moshe is reminding them here that Moshe is about to pass away. Okay, there will be a Yeshua, there will be a teacher, there will be a leader, but there's also the system of coming to advise the rabbis, the teachers to come forth with decisions. That was just an interesting point to point out. Then we continue more with the rebuke. That's basically the beginning of the parsha. Most of this parsha, a lot of Moshe's rebuke to the Jewish people about wanting to ask for scouts, to ask for the spies, like we spoke about a few weeks ago. And we actually brought from this parsha then when we spoke about it. If you look at verse 22, it says on page 1061, all of you approached me. So when Moshe said, all of you approached me, he was giving them veiled criticism. One of the issues was that everyone came together. It was all a mixture. There was the wise and the elderly and the young and all different types of people came, the kids, everyone was coming together. If you're coming into you ask Moshe for a proper thing, you come in an organized fashion. You either send the delegates, you send you maybe delegates from each type, each category of people, maybe you send just the elders, whatever it is. But the fact that they're coming as a mob and they're coming unruly, that itself, all of you, is already showing something was not going right over here with the spies. And it tells the story of the spies, how they went to the land, they brought back the food, as we spoke about a few weeks ago, and they came and told them that there's giants, and they came back and said there's giants in the land, we'll never be able to conquer it. And Moshe responded in verse 29. I said to you, don't be broken, don't fall in your spirits. Continue go. God's with us. God told us to go there. Obviously, we're going to go. But no, unfortunately, as Jewish people throughout history, we don't always listen to God, and we spent the whole night crying, as we told the story a few weeks ago. And God decided, that's it. We're going to stay. None of the people none of the people in this generation are going to see the land. The men, at least. They're all going to die in the desert, except for the 2 good spies, Joshua, Yeshua, and Caleb. And we're going to go into the land of Israel, and then we're going to have to go wait 38 years, another 38 years, basically altogether 40 years till we go to the land of Israel. So that's it. We were then again. We spoke about a few weeks ago about the unsuccessful attempt. Or a few people decided the next day we're going to go up. And Moshe said, "Don't go up because God's not going with you. The Ark of the Covenant, the Aaron is not going with you. Don't go up." And he said, "No, I'm going to go anyway." And unfortunately, they were wiped out. Interestingly, if anyone's ever heard of the vision of the dry bones, the Valley of the Dry Bones, interesting in Ezekiel and Yechezkel in the prophets is an interesting story where he's told to say a prophecy to a valley of dry bones. And it's a story for itself, but there's a whole conjecture. Where are these dry bones from? And the rabbis in the Talmud give different options. Who are these dead bodies that were just left as bones? We don't usually do that in Jewish. We make sure to bury our dead, or whatever it is. It has to come from obviously some mass casualty event. One of the opinions is it was these Jews who went up before the time, and God didn't want them to go up. And they were wiped out, and they stayed there, dry bones, till the prophecy of Yechezkel, and then actually came back to life. And as the story goes over there. But just interestingly, what happened to these, according to one of the opinions, what happened to these people? And then the parsha continues with the traveling in the desert, as we spoke about the last few weeks in Chugat Polak. And we come to the land of Edom. We came to the descendants of Esav, and they wouldn't let us pass through. And God told us not to fight them because they are brethren, even though they don't let us through. Don't fight them. We went further, more distant routes, and we ended up going to. We passed the Moab, same thing, and then as we know, we love the story.
So only the Edomites were the descendants of Esau.
Of Esau, yes.
None of the other tribes.
Moab were descendants of. We spoke about. I don't know if you were here that week. We spoke about There was Lot, who was Avram's brother-in-law and nephew, and he was in Sodom and Gomorrah when the cities got turned over, and his daughters with him in the tent, with him in the cave. They thought they were the only men left alive. True, he was the only man left alive. They were the only women. They thought they had to propagate the world. They managed. They both had children with their father. There was, and the tribes of Moab and Ammon are from that. So they're also related to the Jewish people, but not through Esav.
Wow.
And it's interestingly that the Parsha gives a whole history of who lived in the land before, who took over from who. It's just, if you look in verse 9, 10, 11, 12, it's all history of who lived in each part of the land, and in the east side of the Jordan and the west side of the Jordan, who lived in that land, until obviously now, when God has decided the time is to be given to the Jewish people. In essence, really the whole first book of the Torah, the book of Bereshit, didn't have to be written. Because the book of Bereshit is not, the Torah is the book of the laws and of the instruction for the Jewish people, what mitzvahs to keep. The first book has no mitzvahs. I mean, it does speak about giving circumcision, that Abraham was given bris milah, but other than that, there's no mitzvahs there. So why is it part of the Torah? So the first Rashi of Chumash says that God wanted to write down in the Torah that the whole history, that God created the world, and He's the one who created it, and He can decide to do with the land whatever He wants. Originally, He decided to give the land to other nations, to the Canaanites, to whoever else was living, the Amorium, all the different areas, whoever was living there at that time. And then God, who's the created the world, therefore is the ruler of the world, took the land away from them, and He gave it to us. And that's His decision. So the whole first, in a way,
How is now high laws are not laws
there are laws, but they also learned that from other places.
for the whole world?
They also learned that, but they also could be learned out from other places in the Torah. The first book, in essence, the main point of the first book is to demonstrate the ownership of the Jewish people of the land of Israel. So it's just interesting here. The Parsha tells you the exact history of which tribes and which nations were living in the areas of the east bank of the Jordan and the west bank of the Jordan.
This is exactly how we know that Canaanites are cursed. This is exactly how we know.
Yeah,
that
it's part of
in the land.
it's part of that. It's part of that story. It's all part of that story. It's not necessarily on a mitzvah perspective. The mitzvahs could start from the first mitzvah. It's more here as to demonstrate the ownership of the land of Israel. Meaning, in a way, it's a digressing from this parsha, but there's three parts of that are all intertwined. There's the land of Israel, there's the Jewish people, and there's the Torah, and they're all locked in bond. You can't delineate that where does the land of Israel end from the people of Israel from the Torah of Israel. They're all connected. It's a subject for itself. Maybe one day we'll get to it. It's like all the people are saying that, oh, I'm only anti the land, I'm not anti the people. It's semantics. If you understand what the people are, understand what the land is, it's all the same. As we spoke about last week about making here Israel, where a Jew lives really can become Israel, meaning it's not going to be the land of Israel, but our role when we're not in the land of Israel is to make the land where we are to live it in.
Your father says that.
I think my father spoke about it in Yom Kippur a few years ago. So then we passing by, and God told us not to fight these nations. Then the parsha continues with the battle of Sichon, which I touched on very slightly a few weeks ago when we spoke about it. Sichon was a giant king of the land which is modern day Jordan, part of the land which is modern day Jordan, and big part of Syria, and he was hired by the Canaanite kings to protect them. Canaan is on the other side of the Jordan. They hired this giant king and his army to be their proxy in the front lines, and not so they shouldn't get hit. And when the Jews wanted to pass through their land, the king came out obviously in his armies. That's what he was hired for. And the Jews we vanquished them miraculously, and we took over their land. And that's why we had last week the 2.5 tribes who settled on that side of the Jordan. But this already put fear in the hearts of the people on the other side of the Jordan, because they knew that if the people they hired to be their front guard will take it over, then they don't have much of a chance in the land. So we took that land and we defeated them, And then there was also the Battle of Oig, which again we touched on for a second. We didn't really speak about it a few weeks ago when it came up. But Oig was the brother of this king Sichon, who was also a giant. He also had his own nation, and this Oig was actually, the Medrash tells us that he was surviving for a very long time before. It says that when he was around in the times of Abraham, and he was by Yitzchak's bris. Right? Imagine by the first Jewish bris, because Abraham had a bris. Abraham gave himself a bris at the age of 99. He also gave his son Yishmael a bris at the age of 13. But the first Jewish bris, an 8-day-old bris, was Yitzchak, and Abraham made a massive party. There wasn't. If I imagine an old father at the age of 99 has a bris, at the age of 100 makes his first simcha, makes his first bris. He's going to make a big party. He invited all the, I don't know who he had catering. Maybe he had Shashkilovi, maybe he had someone else. But no, it says actually he sacrificed great amount of. He slaughtered a great amount of cattle. It was a big party, and one of the guests there was this guy Oik, and he said, "Look at he was a giant, as the Parsha actually describes in a second." He said, "Look at the people. Look at this little kid. I can crush him with my finger. It's nothing." So God said at that time that you think you crush him with his finger, his children will take care of you. At some point down the line, and that's actually what happened. That Moshe was the one who killed him. Moshe was originally afraid of him because he had a few merits. The fact that he went and he helped Avram at one point. But God said, "Don't fear him, and you'll be able to win against him." If you look at verse, it really is a really interesting description there of how strong the land was and the walls and they were fortified. But there should be here a verse 11 that it says, verse 11 on page 1070, because it continues. It says, "His bed is a bed of iron. It's 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide." So, and it says it wasn't the regular cubits. A regular cubit would be about 4.5 meters, and it would be 4.5 meters and 1.5 meters wide. But according to the cubit of Oig himself, which a cubit is from the elbow to the middle finger. That's what a cubit is. So you can imagine this is an ogre of, maybe the word ogre comes from the word Oig. I don't know, but of massive proportions, a big guy, but still we vanquished him. And
How old was he at this point? Is it
1,000 years old, easy. Because there's another medrash they didn't say, but I'll say it now, which said that he actually survived the flood. Noah's flood covered the whole world, and it says that he was taller than everything. So it says that this is the medrash. I don't know how much it's literal, how much it's it's literal to some extent. I don't know exactly the translation. It says that Noah fed him through the window of the teva because he was surviving and he needed he was the height of the teva rose above all the waters, and he's a giant hanging around. But we finally took care of him, and then, as we spoke about at the end of last week's parsha, the division of the land, for the 2.5 tribes, and all their different things, and that's the end of this week's parsha, which is not the longest parsha. It's 105 psukim. It's like medium range. For those who come to Shon Shabbos, don't be afraid. And I think I'm also reading the third this week because Meir is engaged somewhere else. And if you look at verse 22, the end of the parsha, do not fear them, for this God, your God, is fighting for you. So that's what Moshe told Joshua, Moshe told Yeshua, when you go into the land, don't fear them. And it's a very imperative statement. Don't fear them. God's fighting for you. The moment you start fearing, that's where everything goes wrong. You have to have that stance. The end of the parsha, it's a statement. It finishes off. Don't fear them. Now, for Margarita, we have to speak about the Haftarah. So, on page 1396 is a very, very famous Haftarah.
Oh, some audio soldiers have that on there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, this Haftarah, 1396. This Haftarah is actually, not every Haftarah has a name. Like some Haftarahs are just Haftarah of Parshat Matas. Yeah. Matas actually does, but this Haftarah is well known, and to the point that the whole Shabbos is named after Haftarah. And the Haftarah's name is Chazon. Chazon literally means a vision. And in the literal sense, it's talking about the vision of Yoshiyahu, Isaiah the prophet, that he had about the destruction of Jerusalem. Because this week, this forthcoming week, is the 9th day of Av, which is the destruction of the temple. And please God, this year we won't have to fast because Mashiach will come before then, and it will become a holiday, because there's a prophecy that all the fast days will be flipped over and become holidays. So the whole description in many communities, people don't even wear Shabbos clothing on this Shabbat. They wear weekly clothing because it's a Shabbat. It's not the custom. In most places nowadays, I don't know if it's the custom or not our custom, but the many communities had such a custom, and they read this Haftarah in a very low tone, similar to the book of Lamentations, the book of Eichel, which is read on Tisha B'Av on the 9th day of Av, and it's really, if you read the language, it's the children rebelled against me. A donkey knows its master, but the Jews don't know that I'm their master. The Jews have left God, etc. It's very, very, very sad. Hear the word of God, Jewish people whose actions are as bad as Sodom. It's very, very, very sad. Haftarah. The last verse of Haftarah is a very, very encouraging verse, and last two verses actually, and they are prophecies about the future, I guess, after the destruction, and also, please God, very soon about our future. It says, "I will restore your righteous judges at first, as your counselors at the beginning," which means God's going to give us back leaders and people to judge us. And last verse says, Zion will be redeemed by justice, and are penitent, and the people returning through tzedakah, through people who practice righteousness. And that's the two ways in this period of time, which we're mourning the temple. The two most important facets are to do justice, which includes also learning Torah, studying Torah, and practice righteousness, which literally means giving tzedakah. That's the two ways to turn over the destruction. Now, interestingly, there's also another reason why this Haftarah and this whole Shabbos is called Chazon, which means a vision. And it's a story that was told by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, if anyone's heard of him, lived in the mid to late 1700s, early 1800s. He was a Hasidic Rebbe, but he's well known for seeing every Jew with a good eye, and having a love of every Jew that surpasses anyone that anyone can imagine. They tell many stories of him, but one story was he was walking and he sees a Jew smoking on Shabbat. Well, in some version of the story, he was eating chametz on Pesach, whatever, or on Yom Kippur. He was doing something very, 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 and so he tells the Jew, maybe you forgot today was Shabbat. He says, no, I know today's Shabbos. I know. He says, maybe you forgot that smoking is forbidden. So he says, no, I know smoking is forbidden. So he turns and says, God, look at your children. They won't even lie, even when they're doing such negative things. They won't even lie. They won't even bend the truth. So and many such stories. So, but he's to tell a parable about this Shabbat. He says there was a father who gave his son a suit. He tailored his son. A father loved his child, and he tailored for his son a new suit. You know, nowadays I don't know if anyone does custom made suits, but this is what he did. And the child was a child, and he ran around, and in the Shabbos afternoon, he ran around and he ripped the suit. The father went ahead and tailored this on a second suit. And unfortunately, after a little while, the son ran around, and the second one was ripped. So the father took the son, he tailored for him a third suit, but he didn't give it to him. He put it in the closet. And from time to time, he would show the kid the suit and tell him that when you will behave, when you'll be old enough and you'll be responsible enough to wear the new suit, I'll give it to you. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak said that's the idea of this Shabbos. God built us the first temple, the first Beit HaMikdash, and unfortunately in our sins it was destroyed. God built us a second temple, a second Beit HaMikdash, and our sins was destroyed. And the third temple, God is ready to give it to us. God has done all the spiritual aspects necessarily for the temple that exists. But he wants to see if we're holding to. And every year on this Shabbat, he shows us a vision, when it's obviously a spiritual vision of this third temple, which is what's the point of the vision? To encourage us to actually behave, do the right thing, do what God wants, and then He will finally bring us the third temple. So that's another reason why this Shabbos is called the Shabbos of Vision, because every single Jewish person in their soul, I don't know when it happens when you're sleeping. I don't know if we actually have that. I don't know if it's a physical vision, but definitely a spiritual vision, which gives us the ability to do what we need to do and come closer to where we need to go, is given that vision on the Shabbos Chazon. That is the overview of the Parsha and the Haftarah. Okay? Any questions? Danny, I see some questions. No?
I'm just thinking. So he got us PS5 and put it in a closet and said, wait.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're waiting a long time, and it's time already for you to give us the suit, give us the house.
What if the child grew and the suit is way too small?
So the father can get a tailor to make it bigger. He doesn't like the finances for that.
It's like closet and desert.
Because of that, they grow.
When was the prophet Ezekiel, when was he making these prophecies?
So Isaiah was making his prophecies about 100 years, about 90 years before the destruction of the temple.
Right.
Ezekiel was a prophet just after the destruction.
Okay.
Like in the first years of the anyone who came on Shabbos, Simone was here. We watched a little bit of the Rabbi speaking about Ezekiel's prophecy right after the destruction about the temple. We said that, I think I mentioned it other weeks also, that Ezekiel was told the measurements of the third temple. Well, we told the measurements of a temple. We're not exactly since when they came out from Babylon to build the second temple, they didn't exactly understand everything of the vision of the prophecy. The second temple was built as a mixture of King Shlomo's temple, Solomon's temple, and Ezekiel's temple. So it's like a hybrid. So there's the first temple, which we know from Solomon. There's the third temple, which Ezekiel was shown in his vision, his prophecy. The second temple was built as a hybrid between those two. Please God, when in the third temple will be built like Ezekiel says in his prophecy. But the lesson we were saying is that Ezekiel was shown the vision of the temple and he's told by God to go tell it to the Jewish people. Ezekiel says to God, "What's going on? The Jews are going to be we have 70 years in exile. We know that. This is like 2-3 years of exile. I'm going to go tell them, but I'm rubbing it in their faces. They'll know about what the temple is going to look like for 65 years from now. And what is this? So God told them that when they study the laws of the temple, when they study the structure of the temple, that's the way to fulfill building the temple at this time. Right now, it's so to speak, there's two modes. There's a mode of building it physically, and there's a mode of studying the laws and studying the structure, studying the day-to-day life of the temple. And right now we can't build it physically. Then, and also right now we don't have the ability to build it physically. I know Margarita very much wants to, and like every Jew wants to go up and build the temple. We had that. I think we had the discussion on Shabbos at 3 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Was Doug Milner still there at that time?
Yeah, I think David Milner was still there at the time.
He told me it was interesting.
Yeah. Maybe came a bit after that. I don't remember now. And then you were here late, but not that late. Not really quick.
We like.
You left like around 1 then. 12. Okay. Okay. Let's say we stay. Let's say the range to stay over at my parents.
As long as someone's there.
Oh, that's very pushing.
He doesn't comfort very much.
Yeah. So what are they saying? Oh, so right at the time that we can't build a temple, the way to fulfill the commandment, to fulfill that thing, is by studying the laws of the temple, studying the way the temple ran and its practices.
It needs to be both.
It needs to be both. You're right. We do actually need to build a temple. It needs to actually happen, but unfortunately, right now we don't have that ability.
So that every Jew needs to raise their behavior, or is it every person to get the Mashiach?
You mean Jew versus person, or
Yeah.
all the Jews versus
Is it all,
the individual?
do we all need to raise our behaviour, or is it every person or every Jew?
Is it all non-Jews as well?
Non-Jews
So,
as well?
so I think both of you weren't in town for that. We just had a course for all humankind,
Yeah.
which addressed the non-Jews role in general and specifically in Mashiach.
I did.
You were there.
Yeah.
So what we mentioned there is everyone has their role, meaning the Jews have their role, the rest of the world have their role also as well. Part of their role is definitely to make the world a better place and make the world a functioning, just society,
Yeah.
and that's definitely correlated and intertwined with Mashiach. And our role is educating them. Our role is being the either
Yeah, I was here. I've been very mindful.
either via osmosis, meaning that they learn from our behavior, or by actually speaking to them, actually educating.
By example, yeah.
Both by example and actually by active teaching. For all of history, we've been leading by example, meaning whether they know it or not, many things they've learned from us.
You should see what the psychology course is like. It's just audience. It's like not one.
I don't mean just the people. I mean also the Torah.
No, but
yeah.
People out there.
People out there, as we said earlier. That's correct. Let's go. Let's. What time is it? We have a little bit. We have some time. We have a few minutes. 20 minutes.
So do I have a question?
Good.
So it's probably the answer, but so everyone went up against Moshe for the spies, except for the tribe of Levi.
Yes.
So what did they do?
They went to the land. The trouble they went.
Oh, all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, so none of them died out in the desert.
I mean, I guess people died of old age. I don't know, but
none of them died out there.
as the you know how actually the dying happened in the desert, which is it's relevant to this week. Every year on the 9th day of Av, which is the day that which is the day of the destruction of the temple, but also originally was the day that they complained, they cried, the night that they cried. Every year on that day, all the people would go dig graves. All the men would dig graves and go sleep in the grave. Whoever didn't wake up in the morning, unfortunately, was covered, and that was and left left. I think the final year, they all went to sleep as usual, and they wake up in the morning. Everyone's awake. No one died overnight. So they said, "Oh, we must have made a mistake in the calculation of the days." They went the next night, still nothing. The next night, after 5 nights, they came to the 15th day, and there's a full moon. So they knew they didn't make a mistake, and obviously the decree was over. That's one of the reasons why we celebrate the 15th day of Av, even though the 9th day of Av is the worst day of the Jewish calendar, the saddest of the Jewish calendar, the most terrible day of the Jewish calendar. The 15th of Av, only 5 days later, is one of the most happy days of the Jewish calendar. We'll speak about it that week when we.
We celebrated 15th day, but people didn't know which tribes they married to.
That's another thing.
So-
Let's leave all the discussion about the 15th day for next week.
So you already know the question for next year.
Yes. Okay, good. So I'll write it down.
Don't see you writing.
Memorize.
Of course.
It's a question completely off kilter a little. So rebuilding of the temple, does that specifically have to be where it was currently built?
It's going to be on that It's going to be on that land. Plus,
So can it potentially be just outside
no,
of that space?
no.
Absolutely no need for that.
God chose a specific place.
Specific place.
Some people decided to build some other structures on top of it. I'm sorry.
Are they going to keep the kotel?
Kotel is a wall of the temple. Yes, it will definitely be incorporated.
It's a retaining wall.
Yeah,
It's all
they're
it
gonna
is.
keep-
It will definitely be. It'll definitely be there.
They're going to go like away from the kotel.
The question is which direction the temple definitely expand in Mashiach's times. That's brought down. The question is which way will it expand. There's different discussions into the old city. By the way, what's found is that for most of history, the real city of Jerusalem is what is today the Jewish quarter. The other parts of this old city aren't necessarily as old as where the Jews live, which is it's a very fascinating discussion in and of itself. I can suggest anyone a very good podcast series about Jerusalem, but I didn't listen to it yet, but I saw it.
You've got a what?
I just saw a really good podcast series about
Oh,
Jerusalem, but I can send it out. Sure.
yeah, share
And
it.
then
Share it on the WhatsApp.
what about the Zalaks in Sfats and all of that, the generations that they were in, but like even before your family?
Other than Svat, okay.
Yeah,
So,
but even before, because how many years of your family in Sfat? Like hundreds?
you have to ask my sister. I don't know. I don't keep track.
Alicia's mother's
No. What
died.
about them? What about?
They've just been in Israel for very, very.
Yeah, Jews have been living in Israel continuously since we entered the land in the year 2488. There's continuously been some Jews in the land of Israel.
Yeah,
It's not a question.
The Zalaks are part of that, they think.
Sure.
Yeah.
If anyone saw the flyer for this week's class, which the rabbi decided to make a big fuss about the wording, it says translating for who, and the rabbi obviously said it that's translating for whom. But what's the story of their translating?
It's a band from the 70s.
Yeah, the who? The who?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I think you're the only one who remembers it.
Translating.
So what's this idea of translating? It says that Moshe, if you look at verse 1, it's not verse 1. I should have written down which verse it is. It's verse. I hate it. Where's the verse? Verse 5. Sorry, that's why. Verse 5. It says.
In the original language.
It says Moshe. He started his speech. He explained his teaching in 70 original languages of humanity, and the Hebrew word is Ba'er Heitev. And if you make the numerical value of Ba'er Heitev, is actually 70. If you calculate the Ba'er Heitev, 2, 1, 200. Not in this verse, but a different verse. Okay, I'm confused. But the main point is that Moshe translated the Torah into 70 languages. Why did he translate it into 70 languages? What's the point? Was there anyone there who didn't understand Hebrew?
No.
All the Jews, which didn't understand Hebrew at that point. Everyone's been living. This is our language. This is our common tongue. And if there were some Jews who didn't understand Hebrew, why are you waiting until after 40 years to start translating? The guys are sitting through you sit in shul for a whole year, and then at the end of the year, you'll start explaining what's going on. Explain earlier. If someone doesn't understand Hebrew, explain earlier. So the classic commentaries explain that it's for the future exiles. There'll be times when Jews wouldn't be in the land of Israel. Many Jews will be assimilated or not know Hebrew, not know Lashon Kodesh, not know the Holy Tongue, and therefore that's why Moshe translated it. But that doesn't really make that much sense, because why did Moshe have to do it? Let when the time comes that the rabbis at that time translated the Torah. Why did Moshe have to? And Moshe has 36 days left of his life. He's very busy. His big speech is going on. But we only have to go start translating the whole Torah. What's going on? When the Jews go down to Babylon, the rabbis at the time should sit down and translate the Torah. Big deal.
Because that wasn't the reason.
What's the reason?
Jews about to enter Israel put aside even the fact that they're about to create a home for Hashem there, center of the world, spiritually. But what they enter in is center of the world as it stood geographically and politically at the time.
And until today.
Yeah, and because it's connecting Africa, Asia, Europe. So you are in the middle, you will be talking, and they were talking to all the other nations.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to know their languages.
Okay.
To be a shining light on the world.
Yeah, this is definitely the direction. So, if Moshe wouldn't be the one to translate the Torah, then you would think that that Torah in other languages is not really Torah. Torah in Lashon HaKodesh, which is what we call Hebrew, the Holy Tongue, that's Torah. That's the way you study. If you're studying in English, if you have a Chumash which is translated and you're looking on the English side, that's not Torah. That's not real. That's not the real stuff. It's that's you're not really connecting to God that way. You're not really studying. You're not really accomplishing. And so therefore, specifically Moshe, who's the one who gave us the Torah, has to also give us the idea and the concept and the ability to translate. To say no, Torah is actually applicable to every person in every stage of life, in every place. We don't have to say, okay, before you start learning, you have to learn how to learn the language. No, you should learn the language. There's reasons to learn the language as is, but that's not the first thing. The Torah is applicable and talks to every person, even when they're not yet at that stage. And all the laws of studying Torah, let's say the blessings you have to make before studying Torah, or the proper respect you have to give to studying Torah, they all apply not depending on what language you're learning. If you're learning in English, you're learning in French, learning in Spanish, whatever it is, if you're learning Torah, you have to have that respect for Torah. You have to make the blessings before learning Torah. There's no difference whether or not you study what language you're studying. And it's very significant that Moshe did it here in Mishnah Torah. We said at the beginning of the class that Moshe is the one is saying it from himself. He's not, so to speak, just writing down exactly what God says. It's coming through him in a different manner. It's coming more of him, of a teacher giving it over. There's two ways to pass information. Either you could just be like a computer, which just the computer doesn't understand anything, doesn't give it any language of itself, and just it just facilitates this information passing through, maybe like AI today, but it doesn't have itself. It just passes on the information it got from the original source. There's another way of a teacher who comprehends the information and then distills it to the students based on the way they need to understand it, the way that it's be able to give it over to them. Right? In the first model, the teacher, whoever it is, passing on the information, is just copying, pasting. God tells Moshe writes it down for us. In this, it's still God telling Moshe. This book is still God telling Moshe. It's still all godly, divine, inspired. Moshe's not saying anything for himself, like he's not making up any information. But the way Moshe is giving it over to us is in that format, is in a format which is relatable to us. And so therefore it makes sense specifically here when Moshe started that format of teaching, that it's per the student, per the recipient. That's when it makes sense that Moshe should be translating, because it's the same mode. It's the same idea that everyone in their circumstance, in their abilities, has a connection, has a possibility, has a responsibility to learn Torah. And in a way, that's also connected to the time of year. Why? Because what's the difference between the Jews when we were in the Holy Land with the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, and to us nowadays when we are in exile, and unfortunately we don't have a temple, we're in exile from our land, and we're still waiting for us to be redeemed. When the Jews had the temple, that's the divine revelation in a way that's above the person, above our abilities. I mean, we were obviously on a higher level, but still, it was godly revelation to the highest degree, divine revelation. In the time of exile, we don't have divine revelation. It is much more of our own effort. There's much more of our own input, and that ties into that same idea of this book of Devarim and of the translating of the Torah. It's all to do with the recipient, the one receiving it, the Jew on his individual level, how he connects, how he's involved, how he studies, how he derives, how he works. So the time of year is very aptly interconnected to this idea of translating the Torah and this idea of Moshe giving over the Torah in a way that's ready for the recipient.
No, beautiful.
Very good.
Just a comment. For a guy who started, he talks a lot.
Moshe. Yeah. It started off with stuttering.
Lots of things.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
Thank you, beautiful.
So we'll finish a bit early today. I don't think I'll.
Then were they elevated even more so when it was the Shalosh Regalim?
Sure, because when it said when the Jews came to be seen by God and to see God, both.
I have another question.
Sure.
So with Mashiach, will we know as soon as Mashiach comes?
Stage is a stage process.
Like, can you manifest it? Like, obviously it's manifest.
Can you manifest? Of course you manifest. Of course you can manifest.
I mean, as in like,
When you do Torah mitzvahs, you fulfill Torah mitzvahs, you're manifesting Mashiach coming, of course.
but I mean like completely manifest. Like if I go myself and like allow for processes to happen. Like if I knock down
By yourself, no.
So there were people throughout history who tried to do it, and unfortunately they didn't end up that. There's I can send you afterwards many stories of people who try to do that. Many of them didn't end up in the best thing, but definitely the tried and true method is to add in Torah mitzvahs. The Rebbe said in 1992 that actually, as a whole, the Jewish people have done everything they need to do for Mashiach to come.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, every person in the individual life could still have things they need to rectify. You don't have to be perfect. Everyone can look at themselves and know they're not perfect yet, and they have things they need to fix and they need to grow. But the Jewish people, as a collective body, we've suffered enough and we've done enough for Mashiach to come. And really, the fact that Mashiach didn't come is inexplainable. It's something we don't understand.
Is that when it was the Lebanon war? Yeah, I think 1982 or something.
No, 1992, I'm saying.
Oh, 92.
Meaning the world, in many areas, the world is ready for Mashiach. So what could we do? We can do another action of goodness, kindness. We could do another action, and pray and hope for it.
There is this idea that if all the Jews keep 2 Shabbats in a row, Mashiach will come.
So interestingly, someone came to the Rebbe in I think 1990 or 1991. He with a big paper. He came to the Rebbe in dollars and tried to explain to the Rebbe that it's a video that we should get all the Jewish people in the world. He wants them to sign. They should get all the Jewish people in the world to keep 2 Shabbos, and that will make Mashiach come. And the Rebbe said, "Why are you giving God conditions? Don't give God these conditions. Don't give him these. Don't give it to him. We don't even give him. Don't give. There's enough ideas why he's keeping his head so long. Don't give him these conditions about 2 Shabbos. That's not the way to go here. It is a medrash. It is a medrash about all the Jews keeping 2 Shabbos, 2 Shabbos. But we don't have to go there. Every act in and of itself could tilt the scale.
Start.
That's a start. It definitely can start. That's not.
So the divine revelation was no longer continued because of the destruction of the temple, or because we went into exile.
The destruction, going into exile, and the lack of divine revelation are all intertwined. Meaning, the lack of divine revelation is already an exile. It's already a fact that we're not in God's favor. Today we don't see divinity. We could talk about it. We could pontificate about it. We could understand it. We could study it, and that's all we're meant to do. But we don't even know what that means to physically see divinity.
No, yeah.
The destruction is similar to the breakage of the first foot. It's taken out people.
Taking out God's anger on stone and wood, and not on the people.
We should really study prophets more.
We should.
How are your parents in Israel?
Oh, they're here.
Are they here?
Yeah,
Just
they're
visiting?
Yeah, for a few weeks.
Oh, wow.
On Thursday. Loving it
Yeah.
in Israel.
Oh, yeah, my friend's going
Are they
to.